Yeah.
Longfin is qualified by SEC for a Reg A IPO up to $50 million, fully qualified, and also qualified by NASDAQ for main board listing. And we are here. Network One is being as an lead underwriter for the thing, and we are doing the roadshows currently. I'm planning to do a list by the first week of October, probably a couple of days here, there, it will be there. So that's what we are here. To explain a brief about the business, let me explain a little background. I used to work at Wall Street and one of the key guys in rolling out the Maru online platform in '96 when Schwab and E-Trade and Ameritrade started taking out the pie of the big retail broker. So we sat with the management, Dave Komnaski, and one of the team members where we built up an online trading platform of MLOM and Demographic. That's how we got used to the trading platforms and the electronic markets. And after the internet, internet is the biggest intermediary, bringing out, everybody knows how the internet changed the world. Today, it's, the biggest intermediary businesses all moving to internet. Google is a big intermediary to get the information on any product. Amazon is a big intermediary to sell any product through their platforms. Intermediary can be a broker, and anything is an intermediary is nothing but a broker, like whether he provides logistics services, whether you delivery services or end slide services. So evolving from that in 2008, a lot of my friends moved to Chicago because that's where the action is. The big boys are like the HFT traders, like the firms like Renaissance, Citadel, you got Jump Trading, Cover Capital. These are the boys like Knight Capital, what two is got listed, what two financial. These guys started trading the markets completely. 60% of the United States market is completely driven by machines. The machines making money, rotation of capital, are the velocity of rotating capital. How many times I can rotate the capital? I'll give an example. Knight Capital got acquired by Getco. In 2010, there was a paper published by Chicago University, it's a confidentially. They said Getco trades half a billion shares, that means 400 million shares a day, buy sell. That means 250 million round trips, and making 1 cent. 1 cent is like $2.5 million gross, with a net of $1.24 million in a day. They are like 252 days. The velocity of rotating capital is what the markets have moved, because the markets changed, the connectivity changed. The bankers also, why? If you look at the banking, is more of a transaction based. The banks evolved as a transaction based to the customer, moved into trading based. Everybody wants to rotate, churn the capital. That is what, after the 2008 crisis, everybody looked at it, the banks got regulated, the government saw banks are playing like hedge funds, and they said, no, most of the transactions are, 90% of these transactions are OTC markets, because you guys see the quotes on the lit market. Lit market means exchanges, and you have the dark markets where there are the dark pools which trade, where the prices move, which are moving the lit market. So in 2008, Dodd-Frank Act and the Paul Volcker Act came into the picture and made banks, there are so much restrictions on the banks. So banks started taking back on KYC, AML, and they are not forced, they are allowed not to be traded onto the, most of the regulations came not to use their own capital, So that's how, and another thing Paul Volcker wrote did is, why can't we bring the OTC markets, most of the derivatives into lit markets? That's how the CME started a big way on currencies. Currencies are the major FX market. It happens on OTC. Around $5 trillion of currency trades every day in the OTC market. Slowly they saw the opportunity, and the exchanges also saw, why can't we, as the shareholders of the exchanges, they're asking how the exchanges can deliver more products. So the exchanges also looked, okay, why can't we tap the big market, like a $5 million market? So that's how CME launched $0 futures, South African rand, Indian rupee, Russian ruble, Brazilian real. So all these products started trading on CME, where the volumes touch right now around 400 billion notional volume trades on the CME, Chicago Market Elections. And vice versa, the competitor of CME is another exchange called Intercontinental Exchange. How they evolved and how they bought 180 years old New York Stock Exchange. ICE also the same thing. They evolved and buying a lot of derivatives, and ICE controls today the pricing of LIBOR. LIBOR, after the banks got into the scandal. ICE became the standard of fixing the LIBOR. ICE fixes the gold. ICE fixes that their dollar DX. That our DX is also free. So looking at this, we started in 2008 in Asia as a market maker. Initially, how we started because experience of connecting to the last mile, experience of connecting and building the trading platforms. I started with a team of quants in India to make the markets on the currencies. And the exchanges are looking at the people because exchanges, these are derivatives, these are not like stock. The derivatives need to be priced. They need to understand the forward interest curve. Somebody has to put the bid on what basis point they're buying and sell on what basis point. The spread is on the basis point. So it needs to be priced, and the markets move so fast, and it has to be priced and repriced every second. So you need machines to calculate this. So that's how we started. We started in Indian exchanges, providing dollar rupee liquidity. Later started a company in Singapore as a subsidiary, and that company became the largest market maker on some of the currencies in SCX, Singapore Exchange. Later, we became a market maker on CME, and we are a market maker for ICE, and we are also a market maker for certain products on Dubai Stock Exchange, Dubai Gold and Commodity Exchange. While working with FX, very interesting things we learned. 3 years back we started these operations internationally. We started and we make revenue is the bid-ask spread. First revenue we make is on the bid-ask spread. And it's like an arbitrage. I connect to the banks. The banks have the FX flows. And the pricings are coming from the FX flows. I connect to the bank and make the markets, maker and taker. I take the markets and make the markets. And my spread is that's what I make. And how many times velocity I rotate my capital. And today world, you also know the market making after Reg NMS came. If you look at the regulation, there are 13 exchanges are there in the United States. The bid-ask books are completely changed after 2008. You'll see 10, 10, 20, 20, 20, 20, 10, 10, first bid, 10, 5. Because it's more of a slicing and dicing, and people are not like, you don't say 10,000 shares are like a 10,000 stock. It's not, the whole market microstructure changed. So the market microstructure is the velocity of machines, going and putting small pieces, iceberging, slicing and rotating the capital. So when we started doing FX, a lot of importers and where is the FX needed? The FX, there's a lot of importers and exporters started coming and hedging on the exchanges because you are a small guy, you go to a bank and you want to hedge. The bank costs you a fortune because the bank will overcharge you. Suppose you go to London and say you want to convert your dollar to GBP, they'll charge you 10 cents, more than 1,000 basis points. Nobody understands the conversion price. But if you're a big guy, a big ticket size, and if you're getting a 5 million wire, a 10 million wire, you can dictate the terms to the bank. I want 1 cent, a quarter of a cent. The bank's agreeing. Otherwise, if you're doing 100,000, they'll charge you, 5 cents, 10 cents. So the banks. And so when these things move to exchange, now the bid-ask spread is less than a cent, a quarter cent. The markets became so efficient and really benefited the importers and exporters, the mid-size and the larger guys they deal with the blocks. I'm talking about the smaller and the mid-size. So that's how a lot of importers and exporters started crossing blocks with us in the exchanges. That's we saw, okay, there's a huge opportunity we saw in this. Okay, now we are providing the FX solutions. Why can't we provide the enhanced solution? Where these importers and exporters are looking? They are also looking at financing solutions. So as a fintech company, why can't we extend our solutions of FX and also as a financing intermediary? Because I'm also I'm providing the FX and I'm taking from some other bank and then I'm providing you like active bank. Similarly, why can't they do the same thing, providing finance to the importers and exporters? And interesting thing to come out with the financing and the importers and exporters is, let me tell you an importer or exporter is, everybody knows here, but I just want to tell you. Globally, a trade between two parties, how you're going to trade, because I'm sitting in Mexico and I want to buy computers from United States, let's say from a dealer. How I know whether he ships me right, how I know the quality is right, how I can assure it. Vice versa, the seller in the United States also is concerned about his payment. So the banks created a system called letter of credit. So if this guy, his bank is acting as an intermediary. The bank comes, I go to my bank and say, hi, I'm buying from so-and-so person, this is my quality, this is my quantity, this is the inspection to be done, this is what I want. So they put all the terms and conditions, and once the terms and conditions are met, the supplier will ship it, and this guy will get, and that's how the settlement is done. I'm talking about a regular import-export, how the settlements are done. This is globally $16 trillion is the import and export between the countries. Like, you know, it's massive because people eat food, people import crude, people import everything, you know. You have a steak coming from New Zealand, you know, everything, you have dairy products coming from Denmark. You know, this is, everybody, if you look at it, the import-export is the key runner. And what is the risk for import-export? First risk for import-export is two risks. One is the currency risk, and the second risk is the interest rate risk. These are the two risks for the import and export. Suppose I am exporting, let's say, avocados continuously from Mexico to, like, you know, United States. But suddenly, under the NAFTA, the government created, okay, we want, the trade is very volatile and the Mexican peso lost 16%. My margin is 5%. I'm out, I lost another 10% there. So we need hedging solutions. They need efficient hedging solutions. That's where we are. We started providing hedging solutions. And now the next thing is they need financing solutions. I have given a paper to everyone, but Longfin, LFIN. Just got the ticker, will be on the NASDAQ, LFIN. And if you look at another, if you look at, there is an article I have given there in the Asia, yesterday there was a published by Dave 2 days before Asian Development Bank. $1.4 trillion shortage for importers and exporters where the banks are not participating. So the shortage, what is the shortage if you look at it, why the banks are not participating? After 2008, banks, whatever their sins, what happened, the government started penalizing them. Continuously, Barclays was penalized, HSBC penalized, Chase Bank penalized. The governments are coming after, we know these guys are doing this, and they started contracting. That led to the rise of fintech. The fintech is nothing but, if you look at it, lending club. You go to lendingclub.com. They can take your credit profile, they can lend you within 30 minutes, the decision is taken. You go to Cabbage, SME platform. I can borrow for my company within 40 minutes or a day. The whole credit is processed, where if you go to a bank to onboard the client as a company, it will take some time, and to process you may be taking 90 days. So the whole process is the last mile. These fintech companies are nothing but shadow banks, are non-bank intermediaries, are nothing but brokers. What they are doing is, the lending club goes, lends to 100 people, back the credit, sell it to a bank, or sell it to a private equity, or sell it to a hedge fund. Again, get the cash, again lend the money, make the spread. So how many times the velocity these guys are doing? Let's say if you look at it, lending club is listed in NASDAQ, if you look at it, last 3 years, they lended around $26 billion. Can you imagine a bank can do that? It's like, it's the velocity of rotation. That's what, the way on deck is another guy, they do SME at a higher rate. Cabbage is there. Now student finance loans, like SOFI is coming for an IPO next year. SOFI is like, student finance, they do the same thing, What they are creating is nothing but an arbitrage. That's what Goldman did. They take the mortgage-backed securities, pack it up, sell it to someone, get the insurance back from AIG. If AIG goes down, it's the problem with Goldman Sachs. Otherwise, Goldman is clean. Because they are just making the spread. It's a broken intermediation. So we are doing this. Then we extended last year. We saw what is happening in this industry. There are 5 big commodity players in the world who control this commodity market. One is Austral Daniel Midlands, it's ADM. The second one is Bunge. Bunge is Bunge Corporation. The third one is unlisted company called Cargill. Cargill, if you guys know or not, Cargill is bigger than JP Morgan Chase. Nobody knows. They are the biggest bank on the planet Earth. Nobody knows the Cargill's transactions. They do billions and billions of lending between this. And they have ships going on the sea, and they trade ships, because otherwise one ship, one LC. Now they create structured ships, trading the ships multiple times. So Cargill, ADM, Bunge, Ofco, New Dreyfus, these are all the big boys where they're virtually acting like a shadow banks controlling this. But these guys are dealing with the larger banks. There is a space where the medium SMEs from a 500,000 exporter to $2 million or $10 million, there is a space nobody is financing. That is the space we saw. That is the space we thought, why can't we address this space? And this lending is also very short term. If you look at SME lending by Cabbage, or on deck. They lend you for 3 years, 5 years. Whereas trade finance is only for 180 days. It's like in a very short term, 6 months, maximum the trade is 6 months, or maximum extended to 270 days. It's not more than that. So what we do, let me explain in 4 ways how we make the revenue. The first thing, okay, example, I'll give an example. We go to a lot of emerging markets like India, Brazil, Russia, China. What is the advantage of emerging market is the interest rate. I go and keep my capital. In Brazil, I get 10% I earn in my bank. So if you want to buy, let's say from Brazil, you want to buy computers from US. We say, why you want to use your cash? Keep the money in your bank, issue a LC 180 days from Banco de Brazil or whatever your bank. I go to my bank and I'll ask my bank, once you confirm what is the discounting rate, my bank says, okay, we charge you LIBOR plus 50 basis points, whatever it is on the risk of the present. So now I add my spread and I pay on spot to Dell. So you're getting 10%, I'm charging you 3% in dollars, you're getting 10% in real. And I pay to Dell, Dell ships you the computer, and you sell the computers, you are not touching your cash, you sell the computers, they can use the cash and rotate it. So that's what we are becoming an intermediary, and also I'm providing them hedging solutions too. Like, they are using our platform to hedge solution. A similar way, second way is, there are so many countries like Jamaica, you take Venezuela, you take Argentina, you take every country needs food and Ivory Coast. Suddenly I want to buy something from, let's say, Canada or US. The guy sitting in Madagascar, his bank, he talks to a guy who is supplying from US, and this guy may be banking with one bank, like Citibank, and he says, oh, Citibank don't have any lines, we cannot do any credit on the country, because the country rating is D-. We come into the picture and say, okay, you issue the LC, I'll find out at Lloyd's syndicate, or I'll go to AIG, or I'll go to COFAS, I'll go to Sinosure. I get a trade finance, trade credit limit wrapped around it. So now the credit rating is enhanced to AA, and I go to bank, and in case the bank will finance me because it's backed by insurance from a Lloyd's or AIG or something. So lots of countries, because a lot of countries have the credit rating is B+ or C+. And the biggest advantage what we get is we connect to multiple banks. That's our strength, and multiple exchanges. Whereas a small importer or exporter, you will have access to one bank. That bank may be a small bank. Let's say you are dealing with a small bank in US, like Sevon Bank. One branch, nobody knows, nobody wants to take the credit risk. We come in and we bridge the spread, and we make our spread. And the third thing also we look at is the banks themselves. There are so many banks across from Dubai, Mauritius, every country has tons of banks. And these banks, always every quarter they are bogged by their pressure for their balance sheet because asset liability mismatches. The banks themselves will have asset liability mismatches. Because suddenly the bank wants somebody withdraw their deposit, let's say 25 million is going from their bank. They need cash. Similarly, they have to lend to a realtor, let's say for building the real estate, 100 million, but where they'll get cash. They need cash, either they can raise to shareholders or to debt. So they talk to trade finance guys and say, can you give me cash? And I say, okay, what is the percentage you want to give? Let's say they say 3%. Let's say before I talk to them, I go to other banks and say, hey, there is a LC coming from Dubai, 1 year. How much you want to take? He says, I'll take 2 million. He takes 2 million. And he says at 2.2, I'll take 2. I syndicate this. Syndication, and once I confirm the syndication, I put the money there, 5 million, take it out, discount it, repo and reverse repo. It's a simple thing, it's called repo. I give them the cash, they will give me the paper, I discount it here, internationally, and give them the cash, again, repo and reverse repo. It's a basic transaction. So this is what we make in this process. 100 basis points maybe per annum, but if I rotate my capital every week, 50 times, it's 50% return on my capital. It's simple as that. Return on my capital is very important. Here, the today's volume, as I told you, everything moved into trading. How many times I can rotate my capital? So it's like and with the hedging, another advantage what we have is our platform is connected to multiple exchanges and multiple banks. So I know a synthetic feature like a call long and a put short. Suddenly in one location can be 400 basis points, whereas the future is 450 basis points. So the machine sells the 450 and buys the same position in a synthetic way. Because you are connected. I'm telling you, arbitrage is every day. There is always a free lunch. But are you connected in multiple? there is a line between Chicago to New York, whereas on optic fiber, 16 milliseconds. Whereas the new microwave is brought it down to 7 milliseconds. There are 20 funds taken this opportunity of a $20 billion opportunity. Because by the time the optic happens in New York, to reprice my option before the world knows and resell it back to them, like, this is what is the today's information. Time is information. Like, see that's what Citadel, Ken Griffin's company do. By the time you trade Ameritrade sells all its flows to Ken Griffin's company for $10 million every month. They pay to Ameritrade for that. So a mom and pop shop guy sitting somewhere in and trying to buy something, before he buys, Citadel front runs it, buys it, and sell it back to them with a 1 cent. All the world is, can I get one tick? The whole world is about one tick. This is what today's world is rotation of capital. You see, I'll give you the biggest example of rotation of capital. There's a guy, James Simon. Jim Simon, if he's a Renaissance fund, started at the age of 55, now he's around 75. Last 16 years, unbelievable track record. He has taken home $1.8 to $2 billion average take home every year, average take home. If you talk to him, he's connected to multiple exchanges across the globe, multiple markets, and he says from Australia to the close of New York, we trade rotating $60 billion twice a day. If I can rotate $60 billion twice a day, and that's what he says, I am sucking the nickels and dimes across the globe.
And then have one losing day in 60 minutes.
And that's the real cash what he takes, it actually go. So in this business, what we look at in fintech is, like in our business also, we are not taking the risk. We are an intermediary. Intermediaries never take risk.
So you're talking about rotation of capital, and this is a material departure from a traditional banking where I'm most familiar. But you mentioned after 2008, Dodd-Frank, right? There's now regulations that preclude where banks can participate. Mm-hmm. Tied in with your thought on rotation of capital, a lot of that was predicated on the fact that banks got jammed. They were the intermediaries. They were doing the same thing you were. Unfortunately, the market seized. They had no way to lay off these transactions. So they ended up really collapsing overnight. So what you're doing, it sounds like, okay, so you're rotating this through your channels. If those channels seize, what's there's a systemic risk in your business, isn't there? Or maybe I'm
no, sir. Let me tell you, give an example.
Yep.
If you take lending club, like 3 years they lended $26 billion. Okay. See how much it costs for a bank to lend $26 billion.
There's a lot of
How
capital.
many people, forget about capital, how much time to process each individual application, how many people has to work, how many lead generations has to be done, how much commissions has to be paid. This is what the fintech is changing the world. The banks are more happy to, so I go and sell like 10 letter of credits at a time, $10 million pulling up and giving, the bank is more happy because I'm doing all the service, I'm a service guy. What is Amazon, sir? Like Amazon never makes any product, it's a servicing, like it's intermediary, just is doing a logistics service, packing service and delivery service. So it's intermediation, what we are trying to see. The banks are more happy because fintech is changing the world. It is because now banks don't need to, for a $1,000 loan or a $10,000 loan, $5,000 loan. Why the bank? The process of a bank. They have to print the same application. One manager has to sit. One credit approval has to. Now the banks are talking about, well, if you want, just go to the. Governments understood that. And a lot of. After the Dodd-Frank made them KYC compliance, AML compliances. All these are costing them, lending a $10,000 loan doesn't make any sense for them. So that's the way the fintech has gone. Actually, fintechs are backed by banks only. The banks, we are making the life of the banks much easier. And what is a bank, sir? Asset liability. Asset of a bank is a liability of other bank. Am I right? It's a simple thing, sir. A liability of another bank is an asset of other bank. So here what we are doing in a trade is a liability of a Russian bank can be an asset of a Citibank, and the liability of a Citibank can be an asset of an Italian bank. That's a global trade is. Nobody knows who is holding the liability. This is how the today trade is. And it doesn't, what I'm doing as an intermediary is I'm going to Mauritius, I'm having company in Mauritius, Malaysia, where these emerging hubs are there. And they want to tap a cheaper source of funding in United States dollars. And US guys wants to source from Euro, because Euro, if I go to Frankfurt, the Euro lending is minus 18 basis points. Yes.
What date are you going public and who's your lead underwriter?
So right now the lead underwriter is Network One, and that's the Bob, and is there. And we are planning to close by the end of this month, and planning to do listing in the first week.
Of October.
Yeah, first week of October. We are qualified for, yes sir.
Do you have proprietary computer programs that you've written that do your trading for you?
Yes sir. It's
So
completely.
you're like a quant then, like it's running the market
See,
now, all the quants are running
Yeah,
the
let
market.
me explain you, sir. If I didn't go much into the technology because it takes you to the other side. But we evolved as a market maker. Today, market making is nothing but, or a derivative market making. I need to connect to NYSE, get the feeds. I need to price my options. When I price my options on a black scores, the machine needs to understand and completely implied volatility how to calculate. Then every second I have to reprice my fair value, and I have to sell above the fair value and buy below the fair value. So the whole market making is today completely machines. And human cannot see that the velocity of, you can see when the Dow opens, the whole world is, the whole information of the last night information and the morning information is getting absorbed into by the machines, and the machines are trading them. So there is a lot of technology involved, because unless you are co-located with the exchanges on a very low latency and process this information, how fast I can process this information. The whole thing is how fast I can read the information, how fast I can process the information, how fast I can trade the information. That's called time raised to zero. What you call is raised to zero, and I can reduce the latency of time. That's the money today. Yes.
What's the value of all the transactions that you did last year?
See, last year we started as a market maker 3 years back from $1 million to $40 million. This year we are at $10 million EBITDA. This year we are closing around $65 million.
But that's a total loans?
No, volume, if you're talking about FX volume,
Yeah.
FX volume in 2016 we did around $35 billion. No, 35 billion. That is a recorded volume by regulators. I'm talking because regulators record the volumes, because it is not everything traded on the exchange. The regulators keep how much volume happens.
So,
Yes.
so the B, 35 with a B?
35 billion. That's not because it's a notional, no, so you buy, sell, buy, sell. So volume.
Yeah,
So-
talk a little slower, please.
Yeah.
What's the income on that? What's your income on that?
40
Total
million.
last year was $40 million.
So if I'm hearing you right, you're an intermediary.
Yes.
What risk does blockchain represent to your business? Because blockchain replaces an intermediary.
No, let me tell you, sir, this is a very interesting question. Blockchain. See, blockchain is not going to replace the intermediation. See, Bitcoin is a currency, actually, because I'm a miner of Bitcoin for a long time. Let me explain it. Bitcoin is the blockchain is a ledger created across the globe, a centralized, decentralized ledger where every transaction is recorded there. It is very helpful for importers and exporters in future, because the contracts can be, if the blockchain really works to that, the contracts can be entered between two parties and the whole world knows what parameters are entered instead of going to a documentary letter of credit. It doesn't change a guy sitting in Africa to access the capital in America at a cheaper cost. They need some intermediary to source. See, it's like that. You need the blockchain can automate the contract, automate the process, remove the banks, the letter of credit. But ultimately the contracts will be entered. But after that, who will fund this? Who will finance this? Again, you need an intermediation. Somebody has to act on the contract. Ultimately, ultimately, if you see the blockchains are blockchain, a lot of evolution of blockchain, everybody talking, but the main thing blockchain will change is the trade finance. Trade finance is, I'm exporting my coffee and you are importing the coffee. The terms of the coffee, the quantity of the coffee, the shipment date, the quality, the inspection report, everything can be entered into the open ledger and the contract. But where is the financing activity? Now, who is going to take the risk of the credit? Blockchain is not going to take the credit risk unless the settlement is done immediately. But in import and export, you see, I'll give an example. The only exchange in the world is Qatar exchange, where they do a settlement T+0. Where India and US, they do a T+3 or T+2. But once the blockchain, NASDAQ is working on blockchain, so that the settlement can be done immediately if I have a cash. But this is good, sir. I don't care anything, because unless I get a certificate from SGS, I get a certificate from my shipper, unless the goods is inspected, the goods is shipped, what date it is shipped, then only I want to pay you. And otherwise, the confidence is not there between the parties. You can automate whatever it is, but whether I'm shipping the right goods to you, whether ship is whether the goods are right or not, like, and whether, on what date you will get it, you know, this needs an intermediation. No, it's not going to replace everything, sir. It is going to automate the lot of electronic processes. Yes, sir.
So the caveat is, of course, unless one of these blockchain currencies replaces the dollar or any other fiat in a way that it can get to a level, but I think we're so far from that I agree with you.
No, but one thing, I want to counter that also, one thing, sir, like euro, if you take the European currency, euro is a common currency across the European nations. Alright? So you go to Italy, you go to Greece, you go to, but why Greece pays me 5% interest rate? Why Germany pays me minus 18% into minus 18 basis points? It's the same euro. Why? If blockchain is also a common currency, but still the country risks exist. The client risks exist. These risks has to be mediated by someone.
So my follow-up question, if I may, sir.
Exactly.
So the company you are taking public, I see it as two key profit centers: the market making and the import-export, right?
Financing,
The financing. So they're very well interconnected, but they really are two different profit centers.
Yes.
So when you look at it, I mean, there's not explained, but which one is really your driving force in terms of the revenue and value generation that is going to drive the
Top line?
market value higher? Because I mean, the market making, I'm thinking Renaissance, right? Of course, it's an incredible business. Now I see more potential in your financing side.
no, so,
So-
top line is driven by the financing side, bottom line is driven by the hedging side. Because, see, very simple, if I can reduce the cost of hedging using my technology 1%, my bottom line increases to 2% per rotation. So, if I'm getting 1%, let's say on the financing side, like every week I'm rotating 50 times, 52 weeks, you have 50 weeks, and you have 50%. If I can reduce the cost of hedging my trading, and by another 1%, the yield of return on the capital goes to 200 or 100%. So the bottom line is improved there with the technology. The top line is always there, arbitrage is always there, the guy who has a point of connectivity between two places. So arbitrage is
So if I'm a company in Liberia, how do I find you? I mean, on the net, or how do I find that you're even available?
so it's, see, initially we are working because we are connected to a lot of exchanges. A lot of small companies have started hedging on the exchanges. So these guys, they know who are the market makers, and they normally approach them, start getting help us. You know, that's how a lot of exchanges are the lead generations. Second thing is trade. The banks themselves refer, like if you have a relation with the banks also refer. Why don't you go to them? You know, we don't want $100,000. We want $500,000. Why don't you go? You know, this is all relations, and then you will evolve with the relations. You need preferences and relations. And exchanges also refer.
It's not exclusively automated then. I don't go.
No, sir.
They're not finding.
Sir, I'm telling you, see, Wall Street is controlled by 200 broken families. And if I walk into a fund and say, can you put money, it's not going to happen. It's all relations, and somebody has to refer to someone. This is what the whole transaction happens to. Yes.
Who are you competing with? And do you have any risk from the regulatory side that any given government, in any given country, China, Japan, Russia, one of your main customers in terms of the finance business, can do to disrupt your business growth?
Like coming to this, hedge funds are the only guys who are in this business right now, financing. But hedge funds, normally they do is they are not global, like they may be present in Geneva, New York, and trying to take these LCs. I can go and give my LC also. They sit on that and they just financing. Coming to the risk of the countries, of course. My risk of without risk there is no reward. Like my risk is mitigated to 4 to 5 days. So the day Monday morning I transfer my money, let's say to a bank in Russia, and they issue the LC, and I discount it by the time I submit the documents. The whole process is 4 to 5 days. In case something happens in 4 to 5 days, that money is exposed to the risk. Definitely, I'm saying. But the probability of happening in that time span can happen, but we are not exposing all our capital there. Like it's like we do 2 million, 5 million, 3 million, 1 million. you're not exposing all your capital to one location or one place. And regulatory risk, if the country goes default, but the country are human beings, we are the humans who are the fundamental for any country, we need food, we need to import the goods, export the goods. Every country trade is the first basic fundamental, for any business, And I don't think the countries will renegotiate and they will be back on the trade.
Who's gonna be doing your clearing?
Clearing in the sense,
Who's gonna hold your funds?
the network fund in their escrow.
By the way, we are in the process of becoming a self-clearing firm. Not accomplished yet, but we're well on the way. How much rotating capital have you put in place to do this $60 million in rotating?
Last year we did there with a $5 million, and this year we are announcing with the working capital comes, we put a $25 million rotating there, creates a $1 billion rotations in the top line in a year.
You're projecting a much higher rotation rate in your 5-year plan. How do you expect to accomplish it?
It's simple, sir, you need to expand to multiple geographies and multiple locations. See, I'll tell you quantum physics, very simple thing. The bank started 8 hours of lending, and when they expanded to 10 locations, a day is expanded to 80 hours. When they expanded to 1,000 locations, they have 8,000 hours of a day. So as time expands, it's like the more places you expand, like Bungie, ADM, or Cargill, they are in 160 countries, rotating capital more efficiently.
Once you're public, can you talk to us about the structure of the company, who's gonna own what, who's gonna be the controlling parties,
Yeah, coming to-
what's your skin in the game?
Yeah, see, so far, there are only 2 partners in this company, that is myself, I own 60% of the company, and the Indian parent
It's at 60.
60, and the Indian company, which is a listed entity in India, owns 35%, that is also promoted by me. I own 30% of the company. There are no other investors, no fear that that the stock will be there or something will be coming, no warrants and nothing. It's a debt-free company completely, and the equity is held between 2 parties.
And once you go public, though, what's the final structure?
The final structure will be, the dilution will be 13%, 1/3.
What's the Chinese office?
Shanghai, right now we are planning to open in a free zone, because big arbitrage is being there in Shanghai. China is a big multi-billion-dollar share of it. They are opening right now, the documentation work is going on.
Do you have any other offices other than New York and China?
New York was the hub. Later we are looking at Miami because of the South American trade. It's a big trade because South America is dying for dollars. Eastern European area is dying for dollars. There's a huge shortage there. But this year, another interesting thing why we need to be global, because example, Singapore or Hong Kong don't touch Turkish assets. The bank in Turkey right now needs a lot of dollars. So they're calling us, please give us the deposit, we'll give you the letter of credits at a higher rate, I'll give you a higher interest rate, 6% on a dollar. But Singapore and Hong Kong, I talk to the banks, no, we don't want to charge Turkey because of the coup. Whereas I talk to TD Bank or PNC Bank in America, they are very friendly, saying NATO friendly, Turkey is a NATO country, we have a lot of limits, we are ready to take the Turkey census. Same thing if I go to Russian banks, they are dying for dollars, but none of the American banks wants to touch them unless I'm in Luxembourg or Austria and Vienna, where Austria is the one where I can discount a lot of Russian assets. You need to be in a sweet spot, sir, because every country has its own exposure. A lot of Asia don't have a touch with South America, but America is the major trade partner of South America. So American banks deal a lot with South American trade.
You'll be incorporated in Delaware?
Yes, we are a Delaware company, and we merged our Singapore entity into that. That's how we got the last 3 years track record, which we submitted to the SEC and the financials.
Could you give me your bio, where you worked before, and how you came up with this idea of structure?
Yes, sir. Like I told, I think you missed it. I did my studies in Australia, and I did my post-graduation also in trade finance. And basically, I'm a technology guy, and moved to New York. My first job is at Time Warner, CNN, where we rolled out the CNN Pathfinder. That's the first internet site of the Time Warner. There, in '96, I moved to Merrill and started working on Merrill, building the ML Direct and MLOL platforms. until 2001 before I started the company.
So how did you inspire you to come up with this idea to start this process?
Yeah, the inspiration is being a online platform builder. Like, you know, a lot of my friends moved to Chicago, started building HFT platform and working for the large, the Chicago is the hub of fast trading, and all these guys moved to Chicago, and you know, that's how we saw the opportunity. Why can't we do this in Asia? Because the guys in US like what you got listed, Getco and all these guys are retaining capital, and now they moved into ETFs, asset management, dynamic asset management, you know, we're using the machines, you know. So then we saw there is an opportunity in FX because nobody is there, that's how we moved into FX. Yes.
Because time is money in optics, you have to deploy physical computers, et cetera,
Yes.
around the world to do this?
Yes, sir.
Costs money?
Yes, we are co-located in CME. We have co-located in
CME.
CME. We are co-located in
Like
SBI.
Chicago, CME.
Chicago CME. We don't take the complete rack because the banks take the rack and they lend some clearing members. They are normally because clearing member is very expensive in a futures exchange. You know, it costs you a fortune. Like, you know, like if you want to clear Eurex, it's $100 million network catch. It's only big banks are the clearing members. So we work with the clearing member of the derivative exchange, and those guys all work on a volume basis. The more volume, the lesser price it is. So we co-locate the servers with them. You know, that's how we trade. And
So where do you have co-location facilities?
Singapore, Dubai, and CME. These are the three locations we are co-located.
Nothing in New York.
New York, we are not into the stock exchanges, sir. Like, you know, see, New York, New Jersey is more of, New Jersey is the collection, you know, for all the stock market trading, and all the data centers are in Jersey City and Pavonia and all these areas, because they are a stock. Derivatives is only Chicago, like, you know, and the Philadelphia, you have the options exchange here also.
One follow-on question. Is the IPO, you know, the offering price priced yet?
Yes, sir, it's a $5 is the price, which is like a 10 million shares we are offering, and that's the price of this stock. And there is a report, research report published by C3 Equity in New York. It's an independent firm. They cover around 200 micro stocks. You can, I just gave the one page, but you can get it online, you know, you can download the report. It's a very vast report about our future projections, how the valuations came, the DCF, and that's how we came up with the projections. And you can get the whole information about the industry.
What are my hedge fund buddies gonna say about this?
They love it, sir, like, because, you know, they are also looking for alpha. Like, you know, we are like nothing but a company in this thing, doing like virtually hedge fund. It's an alpha game, you know.
This gentleman has a question for you.
Yes, sir, please, sorry.
Exactly, yeah,
Sir,
it's,
you're saying something.
Excuse me. I wanted to back up a little bit and address this gentleman's comment from earlier regarding commercial banking and traditional banking. You can go back to 2008, you can go back to Dodd-Frank or any other reason why the crash happened, and then post-crash, even though all this money was pumped into the system, banks were not lending. If you look at the last page of this packet, titled Peer Comparables and Unicorns of Listed Entities in Alternative Finance, I have dealt with these four: Lending Club, On Deck, Funding Circle, Cabbage. This entire industry was developed and required by the vacuum of inactivity and hesitation by traditional banks. None of these people would exist. None of them would be churning 30% profits every 90 days. On Deck got in trouble because they cooked their books. They should have been at $1 billion by now. They're not because they cooked the books. They said that their returns were coming faster than they were coming in. The reason why this is important for what this gentleman is saying is that the difference between a business owner who qualifies getting $10,000 in 72 hours, they will do that with one of these, anybody on this list, and they'll pay 25 points on it and thank themselves for doing so. If you want to go and get $100,000, you're better off with On Deck. It'll take you about 2 weeks, you'll pay about 16%, and you'll thank yourself for it. If you have a little more time, you'll go to Funding Circle. If you want to take $500,000, it'll take you about 3 weeks, and you'll get it at 11%. And if you want to go to Cabbage, you'll pay 8% all day, every day, and you can do it all with your iPhone. So these are the categories of an entire industry that was spawned by the hesitation of traditional finance. When you're doing international trade, you're talking about being blocked out by credit ratings, This guy is suggesting that you have a conduit, which is their company, that can shift risk to make that transaction happen fast. The arbitrage, or the money in the middle, is all time value of money. So I just closed a $700,000 SBA through beneficial at 6.25%. It took 10.5 months. It took me 1 month to get 400,000 from the same customer at 11%. So this is where we're at.
I get it. One of the challenges I'm trying to understand better is if there's more efficient, fast, and simple, but as it's a shadow bank, there are no reserves for these loans. There's no capitalization on the balance sheet. So if you're wrong at some point in this process, and even if it's only a 45-day exposure, but you don't have reserves for that exposure, it gets a lot harder than. I'm just asking the question. I want to understand the process.
So the reserves don't change. The reserves are all over the world. They're exactly where they were before and after this process. The difference is the aggregation of the reserve. So instead of having to aggregate the reserve, you use the technology to pivot the reserve to where it needs to be. So that you don't have to touch it. You don't have to move it from South Africa to New York to Geneva. It's right where it was, and the electrons transmit that value.
Excuse me.
And if I might comment, one of the interesting things about this is, unlike peer-to-peer lending, where you might be creating questionable credit because of the velocity, the opposite is true here. These are short-term contracts that have been in place for forever, and the risk inherently, even in the contracts, is very low. He's not going down to subprime and automobiles and create velocity. This is standard stuff that goes on all the time.
See, I'll give you an example. The International Chamber of Commerce observed 12 million letter of credit transactions globally. I can send you all the information. They found a 0.002% failure. It's a once it's secured by the bank. Okay. It puts almost equal to a double A credit rating because it's very short term, and I'm not financing the other guy unless I have a back-to-back with some bank and some piece. So my risk is maximum 4 days.
Your counterparty, your bank.
Yeah, other banks, 90% is banks.
90%. Okay.
99% is banks. Like 1% is hedge funds or private equity.
Why are you going public? Why are you using the public venue to raise capital? It sounds like you have enough access to capital to, you don't even need to go public.
Add to that, why in New York?
See, the United States is the best efficient capital markets ever built because if you talk to Jack Ma, he says the amount of, you can do on the equity, the structures you can do on the equity, the protections you can bring out to the company, and the realizations. No other country other than except UK. UK just matches this, but the size of the UK is very small compared to the capital markets. And once you are a NASDAQ or a global company, my currency can be used, my stock can be used to buy the companies up. This is a global currency. Whereas an Indian, I'm listed in Indian market or Philippines or Japan, maybe, but 99%, I can buy any country's companies using my currency. Currency, we are creating a global currency like a Bitcoin. Also, you're listed on the National Stock Exchange in US. It's a national global currency and your brand visibility is here. Another interesting thing is, I go to Dubai and they say I'm getting listed in the US market. The KYC to onboard me is 3 days. If you are listed in main board NYC and NASDAQ, the KYC L1 is 3 days. Whereas otherwise the banks take 90 days to onboard you. Because you are qualified fully, looked into the SEC, SEC qualified, you have everything on the public domain, it's easy to do the KYC. So my advantage is brand recognition, global value, and going as an NASDAQ listed company, my business also enhances that. Then going to a let's say Russia and say I'm an Indian listed company, nobody cares. And if I'm saying I'm a US listed company, there are different ways to do it. And banking relations, different things.
Did I see Deloitte and Touche is doing your financial statements?
Pardon it?
Who's doing your financial
We
statements?
have a PBOC auditor here in the US, PBOC SEC approved qualified auditor. I can send you this. It's all the public document, past 3 years auditor, I will share with you. It's in the, you can download from the SEC also, like the whole bunch, and we can send you that. Yes, sir. Because I think whatever, yeah.
And pricing of your service, if you will, every transaction is controlled probably by computers. You know, you're trying to be lower than the banks, the big banks, the competitor. Is there like any, or is it transaction by transaction?
No, it's volume, sir. The more volume I do, I have a better negotiating power with the banks. Because banks also love it, because at a time, I can bring $100 million of business. You know, instead of they go and chase 1 million and put everything. You know, at a time I can go and get $100 million piece. I say, okay, I'm issuing you in 3 months, I'll give you $100 million. What is the price? It's, you know, you love the, you know, volumes,
Okay,
volumes
it's
discount.
not second by second.
It's volume discount, you know, once you get the volume. Same thing, even in market making also, when I go, clearing member and say, I do a volume every day, 100,000 lots, the clearing member will say 1 cent. If I go and say, I do a 10,000 lots, the clearing member will say 10 cents. So the whole is a volume game.
Joe, when he walks in the bank, like that.
Yeah.
Yes, you are, yes, ma'am.
Look at what might happen to business if the banking involved regulations get relaxed from where they are.
See, there is a debate on this, especially alternative finance and shadow banking, whether some of the big guys can access the Fed funds or the central bank schools. You know, that is also a debate which can open a new world of debate. It's a debate still, you know, there are propositions some congressmen are trying to do it. Because like a lending club touching so many billions, like, you know, whether they can go and access this is always a debate is there, but still it's evolving stage, you know, it's too, yes.
Are you subject to the Federal Reserve and US and your ECB and all that?
No, sir, we are coming as a commodity trading. Technically, on the paper, we are a commodity trading company. We are like a Bungie, ADM, and that's why I said Cargill. Cargill is not a bank. If you say Cargill is a big agriculture company, that's what you guys will get later, but it is virtually bigger than JP Morgan.
So as a shadow entity, you're not really heavily regulated.
So other than the SEC, who regulates you?
Nobody regulates, actually, you know, nobody regulates, nobody regulates Cargill, nobody regulates Bungie, nobody regulates ADM, you know, they are bigger than anyone. Because they say we are dealing the commodity and every country food is a priority, you know, like in every country, governments give, if Bungie plays a foul game on a soybeans, the soybeans price will go, sugar price, governments don't want, you know, the economy is like, you know, these guys have become so big, they control every food. 70% of the sugar is controlled by Bungie itself. 70% of the sugar price in the whole world. They can bring the sugar down, they can bring the sugar up. Today commodity has no meaning, sir, it's a trading business.
On your computerized trades, what percent are profitable? And are the profitable trades always higher on average than what you lose on the ones that you lose on?
To explain this, sir, we are not betting, like, you know, let me tell you, we are like a casino. In a derivative world, just to give you an example, if I want to price, then comes to here that. If anybody goes to casino, I go to Russian roulette or American roulette. There is a 38 coins, 0, 0, 0, and 36. And I put a bet of $1. On 38 coins, I get 36 payoff. So that means I'm saying 38 numbers are there, and I get the payoff is 36. If you divide the fair value of a casino, 36 divided by 38 gives you 95 cents. That means in a longer term, if I am playing with you at 95 cents, neither casino wins or me wins. It's equally balanced. That's why casino sells you at $1. At 5 cents, that's what I said, dimes and nickels. So as a market maker, our edge is sell above the fair value, buy below the fair value. Edge, what I'm saying is edge. That's law of large numbers. When you do is number of spins, it follows the law of large numbers, which is the normal distribution with the positive skew. So what we are doing as a market maker in derivatives is, can I sell 10 basis points higher than the fair value? Can I buy 10 basis points less than the fair value? That's how the number of times you're rotating. Here you're not betting, the buy, sell, because I'm making markets. So I'm taking from somewhere and making here. I'm a maker taker. I'm not taking a naked exposure like a stock. I'm taking from a bank prices.
So you're making a spread.
And I'm making a spread. It's an arbitrage. What I'm doing is I'm using technology to make the spread.
They're making the fees on the maker takers, and I will say this loosely, and they're front running all the trades anyway. So they're making the market, but they're getting the spread, so it's zero risk transaction. They're just getting paid to beat in the middle. Just like
Hard to beat.
since, right? He hasn't had a single losing trading day in 16 years. I think it's wrong. But I had a glitch in the program. So,
You own most of the shares of this company. What's the logic?
See, I'm telling you, my vision is to make it a multi-billion-dollar company in the next 5 years. I don't want to sell a single share for next 5 years because we are profitable and we'll enjoy the dividends. That's what in the future, that's what we want. Because I don't have a private equity or a hedge fund to fear that they will dump my shares in between or somebody has warrants that the whole pool of chunk is going to come into the market. It's not going to be there.
Can you tell us who you're, other than you, who's the largest shareholders in the whole profile? Other than you?
Indian company, the listed company in India. It's a public company.
Okay.
But controlled by me. I'm the largest shareholder.
Please, people want to hear that.
Then your internal cost structure, if you will, it's rack space, fiber optics, and not much personnel.
So you don't need, this game is today is hardly, we got 35 people and maximum we may add up margins, couple of people, two people in different locations. We are not that person-centric company, it's more of an organization.
Fairly high paid.
Not really, these are one of the sales guys, and because the technology drives that. Yes, sir.
Lending Club has Lawrence Summers as a director, he owns a big chunk of the company, the old treasury secretary. Who do you have planned for your directors? Have you spoken to anyone of notoriety you can put on your board?
Yeah, we have 3 people on the board right now, as independent directors. One guy is John Parker, actually he's in London right now, he's an American citizen, he's from Berkeley, and he's raised around $25 billion for different companies, he's a seasoned manager. And we have one more guy, his name is Dave Nicholas, he's a good friend, he's from an MBA from Columbia and took commodity trade. He creates his Pythagorean on
How many board members do you intend to put on?
We have 3, but later we want to add, we want to add.
Will they be getting paid a fee at all?
So the board members are like an audit company, the standard practice is we pay $5,000 and $5,000 as a compensation of stock paid at the market price. That's how we have planned this stuff. I'll play the video just so you guys can watch while you have.
Yeah, sure. That's-